Hello, my dear friends in faith. It's Key. Welcome back to another evening of shared stories and spiritual rest. Tonight is special. Tonight, you're stepping into the sandals of someone who lived 2,000 years ago. Someone who walked the dusty roads of Galilee. Someone who heard rumors of a teacher performing miracles. Someone just like you, searching for meaning, yearning for hope, seeking him. Maybe you're a fisherman, tired from long nights, casting nets into dark waters, your hands calloused and rough from hauling in the catch. Perhaps you're a shepherd who's left your flock in trusted hands because you've heard whispers in the hills of a man who speaks with authority unlike any rabbi you've known. You could even be a merchant who's traveled from distant lands, and in every marketplace, every inn, every crowded street, you've heard the same name spoken with reverence and wonder, Jesus of Nazareth. Whoever you are, whatever has brought you to this moment, you've decided to leave behind the familiar and seek something more. Your heart has been stirring, questions have been rising, and somewhere deep within, you feel called to witness for yourself whether the stories are true. Tonight, I invite you to really immerse yourself in this journey. Feel the ancient dust of Galilee beneath your feet. Smell the wild grasses and olive groves. Hear the murmur of crowds gathering wherever he goes. See the sun setting over the Sea of Galilee, painting the water in shades of amber and rose. You're going to walk where he walked. You're going to hear his voice. You're going to witness miracles that will change everything you thought you knew about God, about faith, about yourself. But before we begin, take a deep breath. Let the weight of your day begin to fall away. Let the worries that have followed you into this evening rest for now. They'll keep until morning. For now, you are safe. You are held. You are about to encounter the one who knows you by name and loves you without measure. Let your body settle into this place of rest. Feel the softness beneath you. Notice the rhythm of your breathing, slow and steady. With each breath, let yourself sink a little deeper into peace. Your shoulders can relax, your jaw can soften. Even your thoughts can slow their racing. This is a sacred journey we're about to take together. Not just a story, but an encounter. The miracles you're about to witness aren't just ancient history. They're whispers of what God can still do today. In your life, in your heart, in the places you thought were beyond hope or healing. So settle in, dear friend. The road is long, but you won't walk it alone. And waiting at the end of every dusty mile is a love deeper than the sea and wider than the sky. Let's begin. The sun is high overhead as you crest the final hill, and suddenly, spread before you like a gift, is Capernaum. You've been walking since before dawn, following the roads that wind along the northern shore of the Sea of Galilee. Your feet ache in a way that's become familiar over these past days of travel. The simple leather sandals you wear have rubbed a blister on your left heel, and dust has worked its way into every fold of your clothing, settling into the weave of your traveling cloak like fine powder. Your throat is dry. The water skin you filled at the last well ran out an hour ago. And the sun seems particularly merciless today, beating down with an intensity that makes the air shimmer above the stone-scattered path. But none of that matters now, because you're here. Capernaum sits right at the water's edge. A jumble of white limestone houses with flat roofs clustered together like a family gathering close. Fishing boats bob at wooden docks, their nets spread out to dry in the sun. The smell reaches you even from here, the sharp, distinctive scent of fish drying on racks, mingled with wood smoke and baking bread. You can hear the town, too, the distant calls of merchants in the marketplace, the shouts of fishermen hauling in their catch, the bleating of goats being herded through narrow streets, the laughter of children playing some game near the water's edge. It looks so ordinary, so beautifully, wonderfully ordinary. And yet, somewhere in those crowded streets, among those simple stone houses, is the man everyone's been talking about. The teacher, the healer, the one some are calling a prophet and others are calling something even more remarkable. You adjust the pack on your shoulders, just a small bundle containing an extra tunic, a little food for the journey, and the few coins you have to your name, everything you thought you'd need for this pilgrimage. Now, standing at the threshold of the town, you wonder if you've brought enough, or perhaps if anything you've brought matters at all. Taking a breath, you start down the slope toward the town gates. The streets of Capernaum are narrower than you expected, the buildings pressing close on either side, creating shaded channels that offer relief from the relentless sun. The stones beneath your feet are worn smooth by countless travelers who've passed this way before you. You pass a group of men repairing fishing nets, their hands moving with practiced efficiency as they work. They glance up at you briefly, just another traveler passing through, then return to their work, their conversation flowing in the musical cadence of Aramaic mixed with Greek. A woman carrying a water jug on her shoulder moves past you, her face veiled against the dust. Children dart between the adults like quick fish, playing some chasing game that seems to involve a lot of shrieking and laughter. You're trying to get your bearings, looking for some landmark or sign that might tell you where to go next, when a voice calls out to you. You look thirsty, friend. You turn to find an elderly woman standing in the doorway of a modest house. Her face is weathered like old parchment, deeply lined, but her eyes are bright and kind. She's wearing the simple dark robes of a widow, and she's holding out a clay cup filled with water. "Please," she says, gesturing you closer. "Sit a moment, rest." The kindness in her voice is so genuine, so unguarded, that you find yourself accepting before you've even thought about it. You approach her doorway, taking the offered cup gratefully. The water is cool and sweet, drawn fresh from a well, and as it flows down your parched throat, you think you've never tasted anything more wonderful. "Thank you," you manage, once you've caught your breath. "That's very kind of you." "Kindness is easy in Capernaum these days," the woman says with a gentle smile. "We've learned it from the best teacher." She gestures to a low bench beside her door. "Sit. You've come a long way. I can see it in the dust on your cloak." You sink onto the bench with a grateful sigh, setting your pack beside you. Your feet throb with relief at the chance to rest. "My name is Deborah," the woman says, settling onto a stool near her doorway, her hands folding peacefully in her lap. "And you have the look of a seeker." "A seeker? Someone looking for him," she says simply. "We get many seekers these days. They come from all over Judea, Samaria, the Decapolis, even from beyond, all looking for the teacher." Your heart quickens. Is he here, in Capernaum? Deborah's smile deepens. "He's often here. This has become something like a home to him, though he says the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. Simon Peter's house is just there," she points down the street, "and the teacher stays with him when he's in town." Simon Peter, one of the fishermen, used to fish with his brother Andrew and with James and John, the sons of Zebedee. But they've left their nets now. They follow the teacher wherever he goes. She pauses, her eyes distant with memory. "I remember the day Jesus called them. They were mending nets right there at the shore, and he simply said, 'Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men.' And they did. They left everything and followed him." You lean forward, drawn in by her words. "What's he like?" "The teacher." Deborah considers this, her weathered hands folding over each other. "Different from anyone you've ever met. He speaks with authority, but gently. He knows things he shouldn't know, can see right into your heart and the miracles." She shakes her head slowly. I've lived 70 years in this world, and I've never seen anything like what he does. What kind of miracles? Healing, mostly. The sick, the lame, the blind. Her voice softens. My neighbor's daughter, little Rachel, just 8 years old, was burning with fever. The physicians could do nothing. Her mother was beside herself with grief, certain the child would die. But someone ran to find Jesus, and he came to their house. He simply touched Rachel's hand, and the fever left her, just like that. One moment she was dying, the next she was sitting up, asking for food. You feel a shiver run through you despite the heat. Just touched her. Sometimes he touches them, sometimes he just speaks. Sometimes he doesn't even need to be present. He once healed a Roman centurion's servant from a distance, just by saying the word. Deborah looks at you intently. But it's not just the miracles, it's him. The way he looks at people, the way he really sees them. The outcasts, the sinners, the broken ones. He doesn't turn away. He moves toward them. He touches the untouchable. He loves the unlovable. You sit in silence for a moment, letting this sink in. Around you, the ordinary sounds of Capernaum continue conversations, footsteps, a door closing somewhere, a dog barking. Where can I find him? You finally ask. Deborah stands, brushing dust from her robes. Try the shore first. When he teaches, he often does it by the water, so the crowds can hear, or perhaps at the synagogue, but wherever he is. She smiles. You'll know. Just follow the crowds. People gather wherever Jesus goes. You rise, shouldering your pack once more. The rest has restored you, and the water has cleared the dust from your throat. But more than that, Deborah's words have kindled something in your chest, a flame of hope, of anticipation. Thank you, you tell her sincerely, for the water, for the rest, for the kindness. Go with God, friend, Deborah says warmly. And when you find him, really listen, not just with your ears, but with your heart. That's where his words do their deepest work. You nod, committing her words to memory, and turn to navigate the narrow streets toward the sound of water lapping against the shore. As you walk, you pass more signs of ordinary life. A potter working at his wheel, his hands shaping wet clay with practiced skill. A woman grinding grain in a hand mill, the rhythmic scraping sound almost meditative. Two men arguing cheerfully about the price of olive oil, while a small crowd watches with amusement. But underneath all this ordinary life, you sense something else, an undercurrent of expectation, of wonder, as if the whole town is holding its breath, waiting for the next miraculous thing to happen. Your feet carry you through winding streets, past the synagogue with its impressive stone columns, past market stalls and workshops, until finally you emerge onto the shore of the Sea of Galilee. The water stretches before you, vast and blue, rippling with light. The far shore is visible as a hazy line in the distance. Boats dot the surface, fishermen going about their work. The breeze off the water is cooler here, carrying the scent of fresh water and distant storms. And there, along the curved edge of the shore, you see them, the crowds, hundreds of people, maybe thousands, gathered along the waterline and spilling up onto the grassy slopes beyond. They're pressed together, all facing the same direction, all utterly silent except for the occasional murmur or whisper. Your pulse quickens. You've found him. You make your way toward the crowd, excusing yourself as you carefully navigate between clusters of people, families sitting on spread cloaks, old men leaning on walking sticks, young children perched on their fathers' shoulders for a better view, women with infants held close to their chests. The crowd is more diverse than you expected. You see wealthy merchants in fine robes, standing shoulder to shoulder with peasants in patched tunics. Pharisees, in their distinctive tasseled garments, watch with expressions of intense scrutiny. Roman soldiers observe from the edges, hands resting casually on sword hilts. Their presence a reminder that even here, Rome is watching. But no one seems to care about these distinctions right now. Everyone is focused on the same thing, the man in the boat. You find a spot where you can see, settling onto the grass near the edge of the crowd. And there, perhaps 30 feet from shore, sitting in a weathered fishing boat that rocks gently on the small waves, is Jesus. Your first thought is how ordinary he looks. You don't know what you were expecting. Something more dramatic, perhaps. Some visible sign of divine power. But the man in the boat looks like any other Galilean teacher. He's wearing simple robes, the kind any craftsman or tradesman might wear. His hair is dark, touched by the sun and wind. His hands, resting on his knees as he speaks, look like working hands, strong, capable, accustomed to labor. But then he turns his head, scanning the crowd, and even from this distance, you feel the impact of his presence. It's in the way people lean forward, in the absolute silence that falls when he speaks, in the sense that every word he says matters in a way that ordinary words don't. His voice carries across the water with perfect clarity, though he's not shouting. It's as if the air itself wants to carry his words, to make sure not one syllable is lost. Listen, he says, and something in that single word makes your heart still. A farmer went out to sow his seed. You realize he's telling a parable, and you settle in to listen, drawing your knees up and wrapping your arms around them. As he scattered the seed, Jesus continues, his voice calm and rhythmic. Some fell on rocky places, where there wasn't much soil. It sprang up quickly because the soil was shallow, but when the sun came up, the plants were scorched, and they withered because they had no root. He pauses, and in that pause, you can hear the gentle lap of water against the boat, the cry of a gull overhead. Other seed fell among thorns, which grew up and choked the plants. Still, other seed fell on good soil, where it produced a crop 100, 60, or 30 times what was sown. Another pause. The crowd is utterly silent. Whoever has ears to hear, let them hear. The words hang in the air. Around you, people begin to whisper, discussing the meaning. What is he saying? What do the seeds represent? What is the good soil? But you're not thinking about interpretation. You're thinking about his voice, about the way something in you responded to it, like a string resonating to a perfect note. You're thinking about how, when he said, "Let them hear," you felt as if he was looking directly at you, speaking to something deep in your soul that has been asleep for a very long time. A murmur runs through the crowd, a ripple of excitement. You crane your neck to see what's happening. 4 men are pushing through the masses, carrying something between them, a pallet, you realize. And on the pallet lies a man whose legs are twisted and useless beneath him, a paralytic. The 4 men are calling out, desperation in their voices. "Teacher, master, please." The boat begins to move. Peter and Andrew are at the oars, rowing back towards shore. The crowd parts like water as the boat beaches on the pebbled shore, and Jesus steps out, his feet splashing in the shallow water. He's closer now, and you can see his face more clearly. It's kind. That's the word that comes to you. Deeply, profoundly kind. There's strength in his features, but it's the strength of compassion, not harshness. His eyes, even from here, seem to see everything and judge nothing. The 4 men have lowered the paralytic to the ground, and they're kneeling beside their friend, looking up at Jesus with desperate hope. You watch as Jesus approaches them. The crowd has fallen silent again, everyone holding their breath. Jesus looks at the four men, at their dusty clothes, their determined faces, the way they've positioned themselves protectively around their friend, and he smiles. It's a small smile, but it transforms his face, filling it with warmth. Then he looks down at the paralyzed man. The man's eyes are wide, filled with a mixture of hope and fear. How many disappointments has he endured? How many healers has he visited, only to be turned away? Jesus kneels beside him, and his voice, when he speaks, is gentle enough to be intimate, but clear enough for the whole crowd to hear. "Friend," he says. And in that single word, you hear recognition, dignity, love. Your sins are forgiven. A shocked murmur runs through the crowd. You see the Pharisees stiffen, their faces darkening with offense. Who can forgive sins but God alone? That's what they're thinking. You can see it in their expressions. This is blasphemy. Jesus turns his head, looking directly at the religious leaders. Why are you thinking these things in your hearts? He asks, and there's no accusation in his voice, only patient teaching, which is easier, to say, "Your sins are forgiven," or to say, "Get up and walk." No one answers. The tension is thick enough to cut. Jesus turns back to the paralyzed man. "But I want you to know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins." He reaches out and touches the man's shoulder. "So I tell you, get up, take your mat, and go home." For a moment, nothing happens. Then, slowly, so slowly, the man's fingers begin to move. His hands, which had been clenched in fists, open. His arms, which had lain limp, begin to press against the ground. The crowd gasps. The man pushes himself up first to a sitting position, then, with trembling effort, to his knees. His legs, which haven't borne weight in years, begin to unfold beneath him. The muscles, withered from disuse, seem to fill out before your eyes. The twisted joints straighten, and then he's standing, actually standing. His friends cry out in joy, leaping to their feet, embracing him. The man himself is weeping, his whole body shaking with sobs of gratitude and disbelief. He takes a step, then another. Then he's bending down, rolling up the mat he'd been carried on, tucking it under his arm. The crowd erupts. People are shouting praises to God, crying, laughing. Some are on their knees, faces lifted to heaven. Others are reaching toward Jesus, calling out their own needs, their own desperate hopes. But Jesus, you notice, is still focused on the healed man. He says something to him you can't hear, what over the noise, and touches his face gently. The man nods, tears still streaming down his cheeks, and then he's moving through the crowd, his friends creating a path for him, heading toward home, heading toward his family, who probably think he's still an invalid. Your eyes are burning with tears. You didn't realize you were crying. Your throat is tight. Something in your chest feels cracked open, exposed, raw in the best possible way. You just watched a miracle, an actual, undeniable miracle. But more than that, you watched the way Jesus saw that man, the way he called him friend, the way he addressed the man's deepest need, first not his legs, but his soul, the way he looked at him with such complete, unguarded love. People are pressing closer now, the crowd surging toward Jesus. There are more sick people, more desperate families, more urgent prayers being shouted into the air. Jesus doesn't flee from them. He doesn't retreat back to the boat. He simply begins to move among them, touching this one, speaking to that one, bringing healing and hope wherever his attention lands. You stay where you are, sitting on the grass, watching, taking it all in. At some point, the sun begins to lower toward the western hills, painting everything in gold. The crowd gradually begins to thin as people make their way home for the evening meal, but you can't seem to move. Something has happened to you here on this shore, something you don't have words for yet. You came seeking answers. You came wanting to see if the stories were true, but you found something more, something you didn't even know you were looking for. You found him. The sun has nearly set by the time the crowd finally disperses. The shore is emptying, families gathering their belongings and making their way back to homes and evening meals. Fishing boats are being pulled up onto the beach for the night. Cooking fires begin to appear in the town, small points of warm light in the gathering dusk. You should probably find somewhere to stay. An inn, perhaps, or ask one of the townspeople if they have space. But you're reluctant to leave, reluctant to break the spell of what you've witnessed. You're still sitting on the grass, your arms wrapped around your knees, when a shadow falls across you. You planning to sleep here on the shore? You look up to find a broad-shouldered man standing over you, hands on his hips. He's got the weathered look of a fisherman's skin, bronzed by sun and wind, powerful arms, and eyes that have spent years squinting at distant horizons. His beard is dark and thick, his smile slightly crooked. I hadn't decided, you admit. Well, you can't stay here. Wind comes up at night off the water. You'll freeze. He extends a hand. I'm Simon Peter, and you're coming to dinner. The directness of it startles you. I couldn't impose. It's not an imposition, the teacher said to invite you. Your heart skips. What? Peter's grin widens. He noticed you, said you've got the look of someone who's traveled far to find something real, said to bring you along. He jerks his head toward the town. Come on, my wife's already started cooking, and she made extra, knowing how my teacher is about collecting strays. There's such warmth in his voice, such lack of pretense, that you find yourself accepting his hand and letting him pull you to your feet. Your legs are stiff from sitting so long, and you have to stamp your feet a few times to get the blood flowing again. I'm grateful, you say simply. Don't be grateful yet. Wait until you taste my wife's cooking, Peter says with a laugh. Though between you and me, it's probably the best in Capernaum. Don't tell her I said so, though. She's already insufferable about it. He leads you through the darkening streets of Capernaum. The town has settled into its evening rhythm. Through open doorways, you glimpse families gathering for meals. The smell of baking bread and cooking fish drifts through the air. Lamps are being lit, their soft glow spilling out into the streets. Peter's home is a simple but sturdy structure near the center of town. Limestone walls, a flat roof with an external stairway, wooden beams visible through the doorway. It's larger than some of the surrounding houses, which makes sense given that it apparently serves as a gathering place for Jesus and his followers. We're here, Peter calls as he pushes open the door, and I brought another mouth to feed. The interior is warm and welcoming. Oil lamps provide pools of golden light. The floor is hard-packed earth, covered with woven mats. Low cushions are scattered around the room, arranged near a low table that's already laden with food. And there, reclining at the table with several other men, is Jesus. He looks up as you enter, and his face breaks into a smile. Welcome, friend. Come, sit. You must be hungry after your long journey. Your throat has gone dry. Up close, without the buffer of a crowd, his presence is even more overwhelming. Not in an intimidating way, in a way that makes you feel completely seen and completely safe at the same time. Thank you, teacher. You manage, removing your sandals at the door as custom dictates. Please, sit here. Jesus gestures to a cushion near him. And you can call me Jesus. Teacher makes me sound so formal, doesn't it? There's a gentle humor in his voice that immediately puts you at ease. You settle onto the offered cushion, very aware of the honor of this placement. Around the table, you recognize some of the other men from the shore. Andrew, Peter's brother, quieter and more reflective than Simon. James and John, the sons of Zebedee, who have Peter's same rough-hewn fisherman look. Matthew, the former tax collector, who watches everything with intelligent, thoughtful eyes. Peter's wife, whose name you learn is Rebecca, emerges from the cooking area with a large platter of fish, freshly grilled and still steaming. She's followed by what appear to be her mother and sister, carrying bread, olives, cheese, and a pitcher of wine. "Bless this house," one of the disciples murmurs. "It's blessed every time you enter it, Master," Rebecca says warmly, setting the fish in the center of the table. Jesus reaches out and takes the bread. The conversation around the table falls silent. He lifts his eyes toward heaven, and his voice fills the room, not loud, but resonant, carrying weight beyond words. "Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth." It's a traditional blessing, one you've heard countless times, but in his voice, the familiar words seem new, seem to shimmer with meaning you've never noticed before. He breaks the bread and begins passing pieces around the table. When the piece reaches you, you take it with trembling fingers. It's still warm, the crust crackling softly. The meal begins in earnest then. Fish is distributed, wine is poured, conversation flows. But it's unlike any dinner you've attended before. The disciples banter with each other, Peter making some joke at Andrew's expense, James and John arguing good-naturedly about the best fishing spots, Matthew making a dry observation that makes everyone laugh. It's comfortable, familial, real, and in the middle of it all is Jesus, eating and drinking, laughing at the jokes, asking questions, telling stories. At one point, he turns to you. "So tell me, friend, what brought you to Capernaum?" The simple question feels profound. Around the table, the other conversation's quiet. Everyone is listening. You pause, considering how to answer. How do you explain the restlessness? The sense that there had to be more than the life you were living? The stories you'd heard that had kindled something you thought was long dead? I heard about you, you finally say, about the things you were doing, the teaching, the healing. And you struggle for words. I needed to know if it was real. Jesus nods slowly, his eyes never leaving yours. And what do you think? Is it real? You think about the paralyzed man walking, about the way Jesus had called him friend, had seen past the broken body to the hurting soul. Yes, you whisper, it's real. A smile transforms Jesus' face. You know what I love about that answer? Your honesty. So many people come looking for something healing, provision, signs and wonders. But you came looking for truth, for what's real. He leans forward slightly. Can I tell you something? You nod, not trusting your voice. You've traveled far to find me. But the truth is, I've been seeking you much longer. Every restless night, every unanswered question, every moment you felt there had to be more that was me, calling to you, drawing you here. Tears prick at your eyes. You blink them back. The Father knows you. Jesus continues gently. He knows when you sit and when you rise. He knows every hair on your head. And he loves you with a love that doesn't count your mistakes or measure your worthiness. Around the table, the disciples have gone completely still. This is not for them right now. This is for you. Do you know what worries accomplish? Jesus asks. And there's something almost playful in his tone now. Look at the lilies in the field. They don't work or spin thread. Yet Solomon in all his splendor wasn't dressed like one of these. If God clothes the grass which is here today and thrown into the fire tomorrow, won't he clothe you? Won't he care for what you need? You think about all your anxieties, the small coin purse, the uncertainty about what comes next, the fear that you've made a foolish choice in coming here. Your Father knows what you need before you ask him, Jesus says. So don't be anxious. Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and everything else will be added to you. It should sound impossible, naive even. But in his voice, it sounds like the truest thing you've ever heard. The conversation gradually shifts back to the group. Matthew asks Jesus to explain one of his earlier parables. Peter tells a story about a fishing mishap that has everyone laughing. John asks quiet questions about what's to come, but you're still thinking about what Jesus said to you, about being known, about being sought, about being loved. As the evening deepens and more wine is poured, Jesus begins to teach more formally. He talks about the kingdom of God not as some distant future reality, but as something breaking into the present moment. He talks about loving your enemies and praying for those who persecute you. He talks about being salt and light, about not hiding your lamp under a basket. His words are challenging, radical even, but they're not harsh. They're spoken with such love, such absolute conviction in the goodness of what he's describing, that you find yourself wanting to believe it's possible, wanting to live this way. At some point, you notice that Rebecca has brought out small lamps of oil for the growing darkness. The flickering light casts dancing shadows on the walls. Outside, the streets of Capernaum have gone quiet. It must be late, but no one moves to leave. No one wants this evening to end. Jesus notices your tiredness, you're fighting to keep your eyes open, the long journey and full meal catching up with you. You should rest, he says gently. Peter, find our friend a place to sleep. He can have the room where Matthew usually stays, Peter says immediately. Of course not, Matthew says warmly. You want to protest, to say you've imposed enough. But the truth is, you're exhausted, and the thought of trying to find an inn at this hour is overwhelming. Thank you, you say to the room at large, for the meal, for the welcome, for everything. Jesus stands, and the rest of the room rises with him. He comes around the table and places a hand on your shoulder. The touch is warm, solid, real. Sleep well, friend. Tomorrow is a new day, and there's more to see, more to learn. His eyes hold yours. You've come looking for truth. Don't worry, you're going to find far more than you imagined. Peter leads you to a small side room. There's a simple mat on the floor, a blanket, a small lamp. It's humble, but right now, it looks like the most welcoming space in the world. Sleep as long as you need, Peter says. We'll break fast together in the morning. When he leaves, you extinguish the lamp and lie down on the mat. Through the small window, you can see stars beginning to appear in the deep blue sky. Somewhere in the town, a dog barks. The distant sound of the sea reaches your ears. You close your eyes, and the last thing you think before sleep takes you is how strange and wonderful it is that you're here. That somehow, all the miles and doubts and questions have led you to a simple house in Capernaum, where a teacher from Nazareth spoke truth directly into your heart and called you friend. You sleep deeply, dreamlessly, and wake more rested than you've been in years. Morning in Capernaum arrives with the sound of roosters and the smell of baking bread. You wake slowly, disoriented for a moment, before remembering where you are. Sunlight streams through the small window, painting everything in shades of gold. From somewhere in the house, you hear voices, the low murmur of conversation. someone laughing. You rise, fold the blanket neatly, and make your way to the main room. Peter's wife has laid out a simple breakfast: bread, cheese, dried figs, fresh water. Several of the disciples are already eating, and they greet you warmly as you join them. "Sleep well?" Peter asks, tearing off a piece of bread. "Better than I have in months," you admit. Jesus isn't at the table, and you wonder if he's already gone out to teach. But then Peter answers your unspoken question. The master went up the hills to pray before dawn. He does that, sometimes slips away to be alone with the Father. There's something in Peter's voice, a mixture of respect and puzzlement that makes you smile. Even those closest to Jesus are still figuring him out. The door opens, and Jesus enters, his face serene, carrying the quiet that comes from deep prayer. "Good morning, friends. I hope you're all well rested, because we have a journey ahead of us today." "Where are we going, teacher?" Andrew asks. "The other side of the sea. There are people there who need to hear the good news." Jesus accepts a cup of water from Rebecca and drinks deeply. Then his eyes scan the room, landing on you. "You're welcome to join us, if you'd like." Your heart leaps. "I would be honored." An hour later, you find yourself in one of the fishing boats, the shore of Capernaum growing smaller behind you. The boat is large enough for perhaps 15 people: Jesus, the 12 disciples, and you. Peter and Andrew handle the sails with practiced ease, while James and John manage the steering oar. The morning is beautiful. The Sea of Galilee stretches around you, its surface sparkling in the sunlight. The hills rise on all sides, their slopes dotted with villages and green with vegetation. The air is fresh and clean, carrying the scent of water and wild herbs. Jesus sits near the front of the boat, his hand trailing in the water, occasionally pointing out landmarks to those nearby, or simply sitting in companionable silence. You settle near the middle of the boat, watching everything, soaking it all in. This is clearly routine for them, crossing the lake, following Jesus wherever he leads. The crossing takes several hours. You reach the far shore by midday, beaching the boat at a place where crowds have already begun to gather. Word travels fast, it seems. Jesus spends the afternoon teaching and healing, and you watch as more miracles unfold. A blind man receives his sight. A woman bent double for years stands straight. A child with a withering fever is restored to health. By late afternoon, Jesus turns to his disciples. "I need to go up the mountain to pray. Take the boat and go ahead of me to the other side. I'll meet you there." Peter looks uncertain. "You're sure, Master? We can wait." "No, go ahead. I'll come to you later." There's something in Jesus' voice that brooks no argument. Peter nods, and soon you're back in the boat, pushing off from shore. You look back and see Jesus making his way up the hillside, his figure growing smaller as he climbs. The crossing starts peacefully. The sun is beginning its descent toward the western hills, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The disciples row with steady rhythm, the oars creating small whirlpools with each stroke. You're perhaps halfway across when you notice the wind picking up. It starts as a gentle breeze, refreshing after the heat of the day. But within minutes, it strengthens, rattling the sail and creating whitecaps on the water's surface. "We might be in for some weather," Peter mutters, scanning the sky with experienced eyes. He's right. The clear blue sky is darkening with alarming speed, clouds building from seemingly nowhere. The wind continues to intensify, and the waves begin to grow, slapping against the boat's hull with increasing force. "Lower the sail," Peter shouts. "Everyone, grab an oar." What follows is chaos. The storm hits with sudden violence. One moment you're in rough water, the next you're in something that feels like the sea's fury has been unleashed directly on your small boat. Waves crash over the sides, soaking everyone. The wind howls, making it nearly impossible to hear the shouted commands. Rain begins to fall, cold and hard, driven horizontal by the gale. You grab one of the oars, adding your strength to the effort to keep the boat pointed into the waves. Your hands quickly grow raw from the rough wood. Salt spray stings your eyes. Every muscle in your body strains against the water's resistance. Hours pass, or maybe it's minutes, you can't tell. Time becomes meaningless when every moment is a fight for survival. Your arms are burning with exhaustion. You're drenched to the bone, shivering despite your exertion. The boat is taking on water, and someone you think it's Matthew is desperately bailing with a wooden bowl. The sky has gone completely dark. Whether it's night or just the storm, you're not sure. The only light comes from occasional flashes of lightning that illumine the waves towering around you, making the danger horrifyingly visible. You're going to die out here. The thought comes with strange clarity. This is how it ends. Not in some great adventure, but drowning in a storm on a lake in Galilee, surrounded by fishermen who are just as powerless as you are against nature's fury. Peter is still shouting commands, but his voice sounds hoarse now, desperate. Then John cries out, pointing into the darkness. Look, what is that? Through the rain and spray, you see something impossible. A figure, walking on the water, coming toward the boat. It's a ghost, someone screams. Terror floods through you, even greater than your fear of the storm. The figure is moving across the tops of the waves, as if the water were solid ground, completely unaffected by the chaos around it. Then a voice cuts through the wind, a voice you recognize, strong and calm and completely unshaken. Take courage, it is I, don't be afraid. Jesus. It's Jesus, walking on the water. Peter lunges toward the side of the boat, gripping the edge. Lord, if it's really you, tell me to come to you on the water. Come, Jesus says simply. And Peter, impulsive, passionate, Peter climbs over the side of the boat. You watch in disbelief as he stands on the water, actually stands on it, his feet finding purchase where there should be none. His face is a mixture of terror and exhilaration, his arms outstretched for balance. For a few incredible moments, he's walking on water. Then a particularly large wave crashes nearby, and you see Peter's faith waver. His eyes dart from Jesus to the storm, and suddenly he's sinking, falling through the surface with a cry of panic. Lord, save me. Jesus is there instantly, reaching out and catching Peter's arm, pulling him up. Even through the storm, you can hear his words. You of little faith. Why did you doubt? Then both of them are climbing into the boat, Jesus lifting Peter over the side as easily as if he were a child. The moment Jesus' feet touch the deck, everything changes. The wind stops. Not gradually, not dying down slowly, but ceasing in an instant, as if someone has closed a door on it. The waves calm, flattening to gentle swells. The rain ceases. The clouds begin to break apart, revealing stars scattered across the now clear sky. The silence is shocking after the chaos. Water drips from the rigging. Someone's ragged breathing is the loudest sound. For a long moment, no one moves. No one speaks. Then, as one, everyone in the boat falls to their knees. You find yourself doing the same, your whole body trembling, not from cold now, but from awe. Truly, you are the Son of God, Peter breathes, his voice cracking with emotion. Jesus says nothing. He simply stands there, water streaming from his robes, his hair plastered to his head, looking perfectly calm, as if he's just performed the most ordinary action in the world. His eyes scan the boat, checking on each person. When his gaze reaches you, he smiles a small, gentle smile that says he understands your shock, your fear, your wonder. You asked if it was real, he says softly, just to you. Do you still doubt? You shake your head mutely. Doubt? After this? Good, Jesus says, because we've only just begun. The next morning dawns clear and bright, the violence of the previous night's storm seeming like something from a dream. Except it wasn't a dream, the boat still carries evidence of the ordeal, water stains and scattered equipment that the disciples are now setting to rights. You help where you can, coiling rope and bailing out the remaining water that collected in the bottom of the boat. No one talks much. Everyone is still processing what they witnessed. By mid-morning, you've reached a remote area on the northeastern shore of the lake. There's a wide plain here, gently sloping hillside covered in spring grass, wildflowers dotting the green with splashes of color. This is good, Jesus says, looking around. We can rest here a while. But rest is not what awaits. As you're securing the boat, someone points back across the water. Look, people. You turn to see boats setting out from Capernaum and other towns along the shore. Lots of boats. And along the coast road, you can see what looks like a long line of people walking. They've followed us, Andrew says, somewhere between amazed and exasperated. By early afternoon, the hillside is covered with people. Not dozens, not hundreds, thousands. They spread across the slope like a living carpet. Families and individuals, the elderly and the young, the sick carried on pallets, and the healthy who've made the journey on foot. They've brought nothing with them except their hope and their need. Jesus looks at them with such profound compassion that it makes your chest ache. They're like sheep without a shepherd, he murmurs. Then, louder, to his disciples, we need to teach them, care for them. So the afternoon is spent in teaching. Jesus moves among the crowds, stopping to speak with this group, laying hands on that sick person, listening to an old woman's story, blessing children who are brought to him. His energy seems limitless. You follow along, part of the inner circle now, helping where you can. Simple acts of service that feel profoundly meaningful as the sun begins to lower toward the horizon, painting everything in golden light. Philip approaches Jesus with concern written across his face. Teacher, it's getting late. We should send the people away so they can go to the villages and buy food for themselves. Jesus looks at him with an expression that might be amusement. You give them something to eat. Philip's mouth falls open. Give them? Master, it would take more than half a year's wages to buy enough bread for each person to have just a bite. How much food do we have? Jesus asks. Go and see. The disciples scatter through the crowd, asking if anyone has brought provisions. They return minutes later, looking discouraged. There's nothing, Peter reports. Everyone came in such a hurry. They didn't think to bring supplies. Wait, Andrew says. He's got his hand on the shoulder of a small boy, perhaps 8 years old, who's clutching a small bundle to his chest. The child steps forward shyly, unwrapping the cloth bundle. Inside are 5 small barley loaves, the cheap bread of the poor, and 2 tiny dried fish. It's my lunch, the boy says in a small voice. Mama packed it for me, but the teacher can have it if he needs it. Jesus kneels down so he's at eye level with the child. What's your name? Daniel, sir. Daniel, that's the most generous thing anyone has offered me today. Thank you. Jesus takes the bundle gently. Your mother taught you well. He stands, holding the meager lunch, and looks at the disciples. Have the people sit down in groups, about 50 to a group. Make sure everyone is organized. Peter looks like he wants to argue, but something in Jesus' face stops him. The disciples spread out through the crowd, calling out instructions. Sit down, please, in groups. That's right, about 50 per group, It takes perhaps half an hour to get everyone organized. The hillside becomes a patchwork of clusters, families grouping together, strangers sitting with strangers, children fidgeting impatiently. You help count and organize, making sure no one is left standing. When everyone is finally seated, a hush falls over the crowd. Thousands of faces turn toward Jesus, expectant, curious. Jesus lifts the small bundle of bread and fish. He raises his eyes toward heaven, and his voice carries across the hillside in the still evening air. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth. It's the same blessing he spoke at Peter's house. But this time, with thousands watching, it feels like more than a prayer. It feels like a pronouncement, a declaration of what God is about to do. Jesus breaks the bread, and then he begins to distribute it. He hands pieces to the disciples, who move into the crowd. You're one of them, and you find yourself holding what seems like just a small portion, enough for maybe 10 people, certainly not 50. But as you begin handing it out, breaking off pieces and giving them to outstretched hands, you realize the bread isn't running out. You break off another piece, and another, and another. Your basket should be empty by now, but it's not. There's always more bread, always more fish. You look around in wonder. The other disciples have the same stunned expression. They're distributing food continuously, and their baskets aren't emptying either. The crowd is receiving the food with growing amazement. Gasps and exclamations ripple through the groups. How is this possible? It's a miracle. Praise be to God. You move from group to group, and each time you think you must be holding the last piece, your hand reaches into the basket and finds more. The fish, though dried, is flavorful and filling, and everyone eats. Not just a bite, not just enough to take the edge off hunger. They eat until they're satisfied, until they're full, until mothers are saying, "No more, child, you'll make yourself sick," and men are leaning back on their elbows, contentedly patting their stomachs. When everyone has had enough, Jesus gives another instruction: gather the leftovers. Let nothing be wasted. You help collect the remaining food, and here's the most astonishing part. There are 12 baskets full of broken pieces, 12 baskets from 5 loaves and 2 fish. You stand there, holding a basket that's overflowing with bread, and you start to laugh. You can't help it. The joy, the impossibility, the sheer, overwhelming generosity of what just happened, it bubbles up as laughter. Around you, others are doing the same, laughing and crying and praising God. The hillside rings with celebration. Jesus is sitting on a rock, watching it all with a smile. Children are running up to him, showing him their full bellies, thanking him. He touches each head, speaks a word of blessing, sends them back to their families. You make your way over to him, setting down your basket of leftovers. How? You ask simply. Jesus looks at you with eyes that hold ancient wisdom and childlike joy in equal measure. You're asking the wrong question. Not how, but why. Why did God feed these people today? You wait, knowing he's going to answer his own question. Because he loves them, Jesus says softly. Because they're hungry, and he's a father who feeds his children. Because he's not a God of scarcity, but of abundance. Because when you bring him what little you have, even if it's just a boy's small lunch, he can multiply it beyond anything you imagined. He picks up a piece of the leftover bread. I tell you the truth, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. You think about the bread multiplying in your basket, about the way it just kept coming, kept appearing, kept being enough. This is what the Father's love is like. Jesus continues, It doesn't run out. It doesn't get used up. The more you give away, the more there is. The more you share, the more everyone is satisfied. The sun is setting now, a spectacular display of orange and crimson and deep purple. The crowds are beginning to gather their things, preparing for the journey home. They're full, satisfied, and you can hear the animated conversations, people processing what they witnessed, debating what it means, declaring that surely Jesus must be the prophet, the Messiah. As the hillside gradually empties, you sit beside Jesus, watching the day fade into night. Your own stomach is full, you ate along with everyone else, but you're full of something else, too. Something you can't name, wonder maybe, or hope, or the beginning of understanding that the God Jesus speaks about is bigger, more generous, more present than you ever dared imagine. Come, Jesus says, eventually, standing and stretching. We should make camp. Tomorrow, we'll cross the lake again. There's always more work to do. You follow him down the hillside, your feet tired but your heart strangely light. He overflows it. The days that follow are a blur of movement and miracles. You travel with Jesus and the disciples through villages and towns, witnessing more healings, hearing more teachings. The crowds grow larger, the opposition from religious leaders grows fiercer, and there's a subtle shift in Jesus' words. He begins to speak more often of suffering, of sacrifice, of things you don't fully understand but that send a chill through your heart. You've been following him for weeks now, maybe longer. Time has taken on a different quality, measured not in days but in moments of transformation. The journey has led you to Jerusalem, the holy city with its ancient stones and Temple Mount, its narrow streets and wealthy religious elite. There's a tension in the air here that wasn't present in Galilee. People watch Jesus with a mixture of adoration and suspicion. Pharisees and Sadducees follow at a distance, looking for reasons to accuse him. Jesus has been teaching in the temple courts by day. But tonight, he's led you and the disciples to a room in the upper story of a house belonging to a friend. It's a simple space large enough for your group, with cushions arranged around the walls and a low table in the center. Oil lamps cast soft, warm light. Someone has brought in a basin of water and towels. The evening meal is laid out: bread, wine, roasted lamb, bitter herbs. You settle onto one of the cushions, exhausted from the day. The other disciples are talking quietly among themselves. Jesus rises from his place and does something completely unexpected. He removes his outer robe, wraps a towel around his waist, and pours water into the basin. Then he kneels before Peter and reaches for his feet. "Master, no!" Peter jerks his feet back, scandalized. "You shouldn't wash my feet. I should wash yours. If I don't wash you, you have no part with me," Jesus says gently but firmly. Peter's resistance crumbles. "They're not just my feet, but my hands and head as well." Jesus smiles, that small, knowing smile you've come to recognize. He washes Peter's feet with careful attention, the water turning dusty from the day's travel. Then he moves to the next disciple, and the next. When he comes to you, you feel the same resistance Peter showed. This is wrong. He's the teacher, the master, the one who works miracles and speaks with divine authority. He shouldn't be kneeling before you. But Jesus looks up at you, his hands gentle on your ankle, and something in his eyes stops your protest before it begins. The water is warm, his touch is tender, almost reverent. He washes your feet as if it's the most important task in the world, wiping away the dust and grime with the towel, drying each foot carefully before moving on. You feel tears sliding down your cheeks. There's something profoundly intimate, profoundly humbling about this moment. The King of the universe, kneeling in the dirt of your life, touching the dirtiest parts, washing away what makes you feel unworthy. When he's washed everyone's feet, he puts his robe back on and returns to his place. No one answers. You're all still processing. You call me teacher and Lord, and you're right, that's what I am. So if I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I've given you an example. You should do as I have done for you. He picks up the bread, blesses it, breaks it. This is my body, given for you. Do this in remembrance of me. He takes the cup of wine, gives thanks, passes it around. This cup is the new covenant in my blood, which is poured out for you. The words hang in the air, heavy with meaning you sense, but don't fully grasp. The meal continues, but there's a solemnity to it now. Jesus speaks of many things about love being the mark of his followers, about the Holy Spirit who will come to guide you, about abiding in him like branches connected to a vine. Then he begins to pray. It's not the kind of prayer you're used to, formal, recited, distant. This is conversation, intimate and real. Father, the hour has come. Glorify your Son, that your Son may glorify you. His voice is steady, filled with peace and purpose. He prays for the disciples by name, for their protection, for their joy, for their unity. And then he prays for you, not by name. He doesn't need to say it, but you feel it. You feel his words wrapping around you like a warm cloak, covering you, claiming you. I pray not only for these, but also for those who will believe in me through their message. You realize with a start that he's not just praying for you, he's praying for everyone who will come after, everyone who will hear the story and choose to believe, everyone who will follow in the footsteps you're walking tonight. You're part of something bigger than yourself, a movement, a family, a kingdom that will outlast empires and span the earth. Jesus finishes his prayer and looks around at all of you. His face is peaceful, though there's something in his eyes, sorrow, maybe, or a knowledge of what's coming that you don't share. I won't be with you much longer, he says softly, but don't let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God, trust also in me. In my Father's house are many rooms. I'm going there to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, so that you may be where I am. The words should comfort you, but instead, they fill you with a strange panic. Jesus seems to sense your distress. He reaches across the table and places his hand over yours. The touch is warm, real, grounding. Peace I leave with you, he says, and his voice wraps around you like a blessing. My peace I give you, not as the world gives do I give to you. Don't let your hearts be troubled, and don't be afraid. You look into his eyes, those eyes that have seen into the depths of your soul and loved you anyway, and you believe him. You don't understand what's coming. You don't know how the story will unfold. But in this moment, you know one thing with absolute certainty. You are loved, completely, unreservedly, eternally loved. And that love will carry you through whatever comes next. And that, my dear friend, is where we'll pause our journey tonight. You have walked the dusty roads of Galilee. You have heard his voice carry across the water. You have watched him still the storm with a word and multiply bread with a blessing. You have felt his hands wash your feet and his prayer cover your soul. You have encountered Jesus, not as a distant figure from history, but as a present, living, loving Savior who sees you, knows you, and calls you his own. The journey isn't over. There are more miracles to witness, more truths to discover, more transformations to experience. But for tonight, rest in what you've seen. Rest in what you've heard. Rest in the deep, unshakable peace that comes from knowing you are beloved. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May he lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace tonight and all the nights to come. You are a child of God. You are seen. You are known. You are loved beyond measure. Close your eyes now, dear one. Let your body sink deeper into rest. Let the scenes from today's journey play gently through your mind. The shore where you first saw him, the boat where he calmed the storm, the hillside where he fed thousands, the upper room where he washed your feet. These aren't just stories, they're invitations. Invitations to encounter Jesus again and again, to walk with him, to know him, to be transformed by his love. Sleep now in his peace. Let his presence guard your rest. Tomorrow will come with its own challenges and joys, but tonight you are held in the palm of his hand. There will be more journeys, more miracles, more moments of wonder, but for now, rest, rest, beloved, until we walk together again. Amen.